Well, great to be back in Knoxville. What I'm doing is the latest version of what I've been doing for 10 years, which is traveling around the ISKCON world with founder Acharya seminars. Now, the pandemic, as with all of us, kept me at home, so I couldn't travel. Although I'm starting to now, as you see, here I am. So I made a version of my presentation for Zoom, and I called it Founder Acharya Essentials. So it's basically what you heard before, but it's in a new, it's more condensed. It's like Founder Acharya Concentrate. So the lessons are shorter, and it's a little more interactive because at different points, if you remember the last presentation, I was just waiting to the end for questions. I took questions at the end, but now I ask people to listen very attentively, and I stop during these sessions and I say, okay, do you understand so far? Do you have any questions so far about what we've been saying? And even when I'm speaking, because this is live, but it's also on Zoom, you can, put something in the chat. Gorgadhara Prabhu, can you monitor the chats? In other words, if you have a question or a comment, you could put it right in the chat, and then Prabhu will stop me. And then he will say, oh, we have some question right in the chat now. So make use of that chat. And in this way, it'll be more of a discussion, more than me being, the quote sage on the stage. I want to be more like the guide on the side. And this way it's more interactive, and then the full mercy of Prabhupada will manifest, because we all have our own perspectives on Prabhupada. So it's when all those Prabhupads meet in the Sangha, then we get the full Prabhupada. So as Prabhu said, this is the first of a 10-session journey, and lesson 1, all the titles are the same. It's called The Spiritual Masters. It's basically Prabhupada speaking about the guru-disciple culture. And it's a lot of it's based on the first chapter of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's based on his purports, a lot of it. Okay, so I have a script. I'm going to be doing a dramatic reading of my script, but I do stray too. I tell more stories than I have written down. So once again, Hare Krishna, thank you for the opportunity to share with you a drop of Srila Prabhupada's limitless glories. I call this series Founder Acharya Essentials, and our first lesson is called, as you can see by the slide, The Spiritual Masters. And the year is 1972. And why did I choose to tell this story about Prabhupada being in New Vrindavan in 1972 and talking about what a spiritual master? Because I was there 50 years ago. If you actually go to YouTube today and you type in Srila Prabhupada's New Vrindavan Vyasa Puja address, 1972, you can hear the whole speech, because a movie was made of it at the time. But I'll just give you a little sample. Jai. Okay. So here's the story. The year is 1972. In New Vrindavan, USA, who in our studio, we'll call this the studio audience. We have this the virtual audience. So who in the studio audience has been to New Vrindavan? Anybody? Okay. I've been, yeah. So it's very majestic, West Virginia hills. Prabhupada was speaking at the time, the highest point in the New Vrindavan community. Bahulaban was one of the properties, and he was on the highest point in Bahulaban. He's under a makeshift pavilion the devotees built for the festival.
So you saw that too.
Hmm?
You went there too.
You were there?
Yeah, we went there
Recently.
on the hill also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. The year is 1972 in New Vrindavan, USA. It is Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja Day. As the sun climbs to the meridian, high noon, the thick mist shrouding the West Virginia foothills gives way to a spotless blue. Inside a hilltop pavilion, hundreds of devotees and guests. There was about 800 devotees and about 100 guests, which was big in those days. Politicians, journalists, and academics among them have gathered to observe the 76th anniversary of Prabhupada's birth. It is to the guests especially that Prabhupada directs his address. So let me give you a little background. Why are all these VIPs, politicians, journalists, scholars, why are they in New Vrindavan in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Appalachia, in the hills of West Virginia? Because the devotees had told Prabhupada, we've been chanting on the street corners in America, mainly in America still in those days, a little bit in Europe. But we look different, we smell different, we sound different. People don't understand who we are, what we're doing. So Prabhupada said, oh, well, invite them to New Vrindavan, invite some VIPs. We say today influencers, people who can tell others. So the New York Times was there, Mother Earth News, WWVA, Wheeling, West Virginia, KDKA, Pittsburgh, all the media, and they were there to find out what this Hare Krishna is all about. They couldn't even say Hare. Hare Krishna, because it's an English word. Hare means rabbit, right?
That was 72.
72.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's how Prabhupada started his address, and he's speaking mainly to the guests, because we know Vyasa Puja, but they don't know why is he sitting on this big throne, right? Who does he think he is in America? Ladies and gentlemen, this ceremony, of course, those who are my students, they know what is this ceremony. Those who are visitors, for their information, I may inform you something about this ceremony. These are Prabhupada's exact words, right from the movie. Otherwise, it may be misunderstood. An outsider may see that why a person is being worshipped like God. There may be some doubt. Doubt indeed. The 1960s and 70s have seen a spike in the number of opportunistic gurus coming to the West, streamlining Vedic revelation to suit modern tastes and reaping the profits. Chat check. Is anybody in the chat yet? You gotta be.
Actually, can you just probably maybe the volume wise? Oh, yeah.
No, you can't control what goes in.
Yeah.
The only thing is, if you bring it closer to you,
You want me to? All right. So then I have to move this back a little. All right. All right. Yeah, we're depending on the laptop audio. Okay. So we're okay with the chats? Nobody's. Okay. Okay. So Prabhupada knows that they're already skeptical because he's sitting on a high seat, right? To establish trust, Prabhupada begins to demystify the guru by connecting him to other gurus in, quote, parampara, a disciplic succession of authentic spiritual masters descending from Lord Krishna himself. Oops. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demystification continues. So this is the example of why you have to have a real guru has to come in a chain of disciplic succession. And then he gives us this beautiful analogy that's probably more understandable in India or in tropical countries than in America. But he says, quote, on the top of the mango tree, there is a very ripened fruit, and that fruit has to be tasted. So if I drop the fruit from up, it will be lost. Therefore, it is handed it is handed over. After one, after, then it comes down. You okay? What's happening?
Try to, if you had a earbud with a microphone, then they will, at the other end, they can listen better.
Are
There
they,
been messages coming. but
Maybe-
they can't hear.
messages coming on chat that they can't hear me?
The one Prabhu was saying, like, I think it's better now, Prabhu.
I think it's okay for today, maybe for tomorrow we can be.
Okay.
Do you have a earbud?
Yeah, let's not get into too much tech business.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Well, okay, I'll try to speak up.
I think it's okay.
All right. I'm going to repeat that analogy again because we were distracted with tech stuff.
Yeah, that would be really good.
Wait a minute, where are you going to put the input?
Input will be here.
Oh,
But
But where are you going to plug that in?
Plug it
Plug it into the computer.
In here? Audio? Is that?
Yeah, it's
This one?
audio, yeah.
Or you gotta come to send?
Yeah.
All right, okay, all right, folks, bear with us. We want you to hear. That's the main thing. Oh, that's it. It is what it is. It's kind of riding up, but it's I have a big head. That's my problem.
Actually, this is
That's
from
it?
my school.
All right,
That's a bad.
The other way around. The other way.
here,
It's rapid.
it's the right. All right. I'm your moon man now. Okay, so I'm gonna say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So is that any better out there in Cyberland? Tell me.
Yes, definitely.
Let's, because if it doesn't make a difference, I don't want to wear this thing. They like it.
Yeah.
Okay. For you, anything. So you can hear. Here we go again with the analogy. Quote, on the top of the mango tree, there is a very ripened fruit, and that fruit has to be tasted. So if I drop the fruit from up, splat, it will be lost. Therefore, it is handed over after one, then it comes down. So all Vedic process of knowledge is taken from the authority. And it comes down through disciplic succession. So Prabhupada's demystifying the guru. He's simply the latest representative of a whole lineage, a whole chain of spiritual masters. That's a real guru. Well aware of modern antipathy to authority, Prabhupada then compares the guru to that venerable American pedestrian, the mailman, or as they say in India, post-peon. At least they did 50 years ago. Quote, this is what Prabhupada, here's how we gave that analogy. Just like a post-peon comes and delivers you, say, $100. So he is not delivering that. He's not delivering that $100. Your friend has sent you $100, and his business is to hand over that $100 as it is, without any change, without taking $1 from it. No, or adding, no subtracting. No addition, no subtraction. His honesty, his perfection is that he delivers you that $100, which is sent by your friend. He may be imperfect in so many other ways, but when he does his business perfectly, he is perfect. Similarly, we receive perfect knowledge from Krishna through the agency of spiritual masters. Such a relatable comparison, because as Prabhupada said, the mailman, he may be, imperfect in so many ways, but if he delivers the mail without adding or subtracting to what he's delivering, then he's a perfect mailman. So the guru, you may take issue with him for so many things, the way he looks, or the way he talks, but if he's actually delivering the message of Krishna intact, that's a real guru. Okay, that's the end of that first section. Are there any questions or comments either from our studio audience or our cyber audience so far as we're wading into the topic, the spiritual masters?
What was the gist of what you just said?
The distill?
No, the gist,
The gist, yeah, it's this distillation.
the distillation, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that the guru is not something, as Prabhupada would sometimes say, with four arms, mysterious. He's simply a teacher representing Krishna. Yeah, that's what a guru is. Krishna is the original guru. One never repeats Krishna's message in the Gita intact as it is. That's a bona fide guru. You don't have to have a long beard or show some ash or gold, when people are impressed by mystic powers, right? But that's not a real guru. All right, the next section is called Guru is One, Gurus are Different. The guru as God's mailman, down to earth, yet out of this world. In this sense, all genuine gurus are one. Those guests who go on to read Prabhupada's teachings will learn how all genuine gurus also differ. Okay, is that slide 2?
That's still like,
3?
that's.
Okay, that's what we should have had. I'm sorry, I got wrapped up in talking. So the last, is that slide 3?
Yes.
Okay, we need 4 now. Yes, in the very first text of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the definitive biography of Lord Krishna's golden avatar, Lord Chaitanya. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, there he is in his late 90s. He's practically going blind. He's shaking from, we would say Alzheimer's, right? Or what is it when you have Parkinson's? Yeah. But he's being empowered to write Lord Chaitanya's life story, life and teachings. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami begins by offering his respectful obeisances to Gurun, his many, Gurun is plural, his many spiritual masters. In the book's introduction, Srila Prabhupada notes, quote, he uses the plural here to indicate the disciplic succession. He offers obeisances not to his spiritual master alone, but to the whole parampara. Parampara literally means one after another. The chain of disciplic succession beginning with Lord Krishna himself. Later in the first chapter, text 35, Kaviraj Goswami offers his respects to, quote, my initiating spiritual master, and to all my instructing spiritual masters. Anybody know who Lord Chaitanya or Lord Krishnadas Kaviraj's initiating spiritual master was? I'll give you a hint who wasn't, because most people answer who Kaviraj Goswami offers his obeisances to do at the end of every chapter of CC. Who does he offer his respect? Rupa and Raghunath. Those were his main Shiksha gurus. But he actually took Diksha from none other than, yes, Lord Nityananda. So even though Lord Nityananda, who is of the category of Godhead himself, an expansion of Godhead, expansion of Balaram, an avatar of Balaram, was his own Diksha guru, he doesn't just talk about Lord Nityananda, he talks about plural, he talks about his spiritual masters. And then in the purport to Adi Lila, chapter 1, text 35, that same chapter, Prabhupada writes, quote, a devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master because in the scriptures, acceptance of more than one is always forbidden. There is no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. And then listen to this and see if we do this in ISKCON. Prabhupada wrote it, but do we follow it? Let's see. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. Do we follow that in ISKCON? We do? Yeah? Okay, maybe we're improving. Because usually what happens at the local level is that people are hearing from the senior devotees in class and they're counseled by them, and then somebody else very often flies in, does the initiation, and flies out. So why is that? Well, for one thing, we have very few people doing that service of initiating. And we need to do it more. Would we rather have a culture of a few gurus? I think there's about 100 or so initiating now. Sometimes thousands of people. So many people. Or would we rather have a culture of, as Prabhupada once told us, we need millions of gurus, he said. Would we rather have millions of gurus initiating enough people, just enough people that they can personally take care of? What to speak of knowing their names. Yeah, so that's something we have to work on, because it's kind of upside down. And of course, even when Prabhupada was walking among us, he didn't even follow what he just wrote, because he couldn't stay in one place. He had a whole Hare Krishna movement to explode. He was traveling now. He traveled around the world 14 times in 12 years. My God. I'm the age of Prabhupada that Prabhupada was. I'm the age now that Prabhupada was when he did that. And I'm, and even coming just from Phoenix to Knoxville, it takes something out of you. This jet lag. And then there's, okay, let me sleep off this jet lag. Prabhupada didn't do that. Wherever he was, okay, we've landed now in Bangkok, it's midnight. It's time to translate. And while he was exploding a movement, by the way, he was translating dozens of books. Oh, we've just landed at 6 o'clock. It's time for my morning walk. He might have flown all the way from, Sydney, Australia to Hawaii. It's time for the morning walk. Okay, so he's on the morning walk. Okay, it's noon. It's time for the midday massage, the full body oil massage. Okay, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. It's time to greet guests. I mean, Prabhupada just instantly adapted to wherever he was. If he felt the jet lag, he didn't let on, because he was so determined to expand Krishna consciousness all over the world as fast as possible. He didn't know how much time he had to live. And to personally tend to the people who were right in front of him. That's not a guru, that's a super guru. A guru of gurus. Okay. So that I'll read that sentence again. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. We need to develop that kind of a culture more. Now, the last sentence indicates the natural normative guru-disciple relationship, sustainable over time, sustainable, where there's a personal interaction, just like it was actually in Vedic times, when every village had a guru, and they hear from the sadhu, and then naturally they get inspired, and then they want the sadhu to take him or her to the next step. So they initiate the person, because you get faith in hearing from people. And their faith comes from the fact that they're hearing from people purely representing Krishna's message and living Krishna's instructions. Although Prabhupada was uniquely empowered to spread Krishna consciousness worldwide within a few years, it is worth noting that he entrusted the thousands of disciples he was initiating to the care of his local leaders and senior devotees. He would tell us, like the one and only letter I wrote to Prabhupada, thanking him for initiating me. He told me I could take further instruction. I was living in New Vrindavan at the time, from Kirtanananda Maharaj, who was the leader that time in New Vrindavan. So he was referring me to the local, senior devotee. Now, decades on, to glimpse how his movement's guru disciple culture can become more local and sustainable, the way he himself describes it, let's continue to examine Prabhupada's presentation of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita's foundational first chapter, The Spiritual Masters. Okay, so we're moving into another section. Are there any questions about that section, either online in the chats or from our local people about how the Guru is one? Yes, Mataji.
So my question is probably like sometime like we sometimes go by Guru's name.
It's hard for me to hear with this on. Say it again.
So sometimes we go by Guru's name, like who is the popular Guru in his form, like to take initiation. So what is the best way to go by the name or to go by the instruction or personal interaction with the Guru?
Okay. So Mataji asks, sometimes we go by the Guru's. I'm not sure what you mean by we go by the Guru's
Well,
name.
Guru's name is the famous.
Oh,
Popularity.
his reputation. Okay. So Mataji's question is, should we go by the name and fame of a person? Is that the kind of a person we should be initiated by? Or should we go by what he's saying?
Yeah, by
Personal, yeah, well, I think you've answered the question, obviously. Yeah, sure. The Shastra describes, and we'll get to this later in a later lesson, how when someone becomes interested in developing a guru-disciple relationship with a certain person, then the person approaches that prospective guru and asks about that. And so in the Shastras, it says, the guru and the disciple should mutually examine each other for a year. And Prabhupada once compared it to a boy and a girl getting interested in each other and then thinking about marriage, but then wondering, over time, could I actually be married to this person? I mean, it's one thing to be friends, right? But it's quite another thing to talk about living together for a long period of time. So that's how careful it should be. So the guru is thinking, could this person actually be my disciple? Is there some, I call it spiritual chemistry here. Is there some, faith? Does this person actually have faith in what I'm saying and how I'm behaving? And then also the disciple is thinking, could I actually accept this person as my spiritual master, as good as God that he or she can actually deliver me to the parampara all the way back to Godhead? Could I actually do that? Could I actually be the disciple? So it's supposed to be a year, 6 months to a year, mutual examination. So again, Prabhupada, because he was always moving, he couldn't do that just by the constraint of him exploding a Hare Krishna movement. So he left that job to his local temple presidents, who said, now you have to see whether this prospective initiate is following, the disciplines of bhakti, the rules, chanting 16 rounds, and serving cooperatively with the devotees. You have to see if this person's ready for that. It's quite a commitment, no small thing. So that's what the temple presidents did. And if somebody was steady for a year, then they receive what we call Harinam initiation. They'd get the holy name with the beads and a new name. And that's just the first step, because starting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he divided the initiation into 2 steps, Harinam initiation and then Gayatri Diksha, and then it's complete. So, we have to be very careful in our selection of spiritual masters, because even if somebody is bona fide spiritual master, and even if I have a sincere candidate, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to work as guru disciple. Doesn't work like that. Just like I said, just because you have a nice boy and a nice girl, it doesn't mean they can work as husband and wife. That has to be seen over time. That takes time. So, yeah. So let's bring it practically to today. Because when Prabhupada was walking among us in his time on earth, he was the only guru in the Hare Krishna movement. There was no other choice, but he was, he wasn't just a guru. He was on the level of a founder acharya. He was a super guru. He was a Shakti Avatar. He was, what he did, nobody can do unless they're empowered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So again, he depended on his local people to see if they were ready. But now we have a multiple guru culture. There are many Guru Devs, there are many Guru Maharajas. So people, they have a choice to see who they want to connect with as their personal spiritual master in the initiating sense. So I always encourage people to really take time. There's no rush to judgment here, and there shouldn't be any peer pressure. Just because for example, if you're living in a certain place where there's a lot of disciples of a certain spiritual master, those people should not pressure anybody to take initiation from their guru. That's not a reason to take initiation, just peer pressure. Or geography. Just because people are living in, say, Delhi, doesn't mean they have to take initiation from Gopal Krishna Maharaj, right? Because there's many spiritual masters in India, or Ujjain, where the late great Bhakti True Maharaj used to be based. There's many spiritual masters there too. So it has to be seen, what actually works over time. It takes time. Good things take time. Good question. Yes.
One quick question, actually, sometimes I've seen a lot of these
All stars.
a lot of people actually, from Prabhupada's time.
Yeah.
They were interested, but they kept on waiting. And till they did not get initiated. So they waited and waited. So that can be another aspect of if we keep waiting for someone wonderful thing to happen. So that may never happen.
Okay, that's a good point. Prabhu is commenting that not only I said there should be no rush into the relationship, nor should one forever fail to commit. Now, it's like that analogy with the fruit. If the fruit doesn't get picked, it's going to rot. So similarly, if we let our devotional creeper rot on the vine, so to speak, and never let ourselves be transformed, by a bona fide spiritual master, it could be just an excuse to not surrender to Krishna, because Krishna, he himself says to Arjuna in the Adi Purana, he says, one who says he's my devotee is not my devotee, but one who says he's the devotee of my devotee, that person is my devotee. So Krishna wants us to humble ourselves before a bona fide spiritual master. Okay, good point. Okay, now this next section is called Initiating and Instructing Gurus. They're different, they play different roles. In the years since Prabhupada's passing, the spotlight on the initiating spiritual master may have led members of his movement to believe that to initiate disciples requires more qualification than to instruct them, because we tend to just put initiators up on a pedestal, right? But okay, so slide 5. Is that slide 5? Okay. Okay, so Prabhupada is using his mudra, making a point. Yes. In his comments to text 34 of that first chapter of CC, Prabhupada disagrees that it takes more qualification to initiate than to instruct. He disagrees. Quote, okay, now I do it. No, you do it. Click in one more bit of that. Yeah, there you go. Quote, the initiating and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. Wow. Equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. although they have different dealings. Uh-huh. Now, what does that mean? So let's keep going here. In his comments to text 47, Prabhupada raises the point to a warning. Okay, now see my image there is in the way. Oh, there you go. Okay. Whoop, put me in Prabhupada's hand. There you go. Prabhupada's got me in the palm of his hand. This is where I belong, right? All right. Quote, Prabhupada says, there is no difference between the shelter-giving Supreme Lord and the initiating and instructing spiritual masters. If one foolishly discriminates between them, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. So not only is it wrong to think that one or the other is higher or lower, but it's offensive. It doesn't mean that people aren't on different levels of advancement, but categorically, the service of Diksha Guru is no higher than that of Shiksha Guru, for example. All right.
So one quick question though.
Okay.
So if there is kind of like some kind of apparent contradiction in the instruction of our initiating Guru and the instructing Guru, like then whom should we?
Okay. All right. So Prabhu is saying that, okay, so all well and good, you say that the Shiksha and Diksha Gurus, they're categorically equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, Prabhupada says. But what happens if your instructing Guru, your Shiksha Guru, gives you an instruction that contradicts the instruction of your Diksha Guru? Well, that shouldn't happen, because if and it really is, the burden is, first of all, on the person who's taking initiation, the disciple, to select initiating and instructing gurus who are on the same page, right? Because as we're going to see as time goes on, there's many different kinds. Guru is one, speaks the message of Krishna, but gurus are different. So some gurus may have more of a focus on Prabhupada's aspect as, as the one who established deities all over the world. So they may be very sensitive to Prabhupada's mission of deities, of establishing the deity form of Krishna all over the world. Some other gurus might be more focused on Prabhupada's aspect of establishing rural communities all over the world. Some other gurus might be more focused on Prabhupada's aspect of book distribution. So these are all legitimate aspects of Srila Prabhupada, but because of their different focuses, they might actually have different emphases and might put one aspect of Prabhupada over another. So it's really up to people who are approaching spiritual masters, to see if you got to see if they're compatible. So that takes time. I mean, you won't know right away, but you can do your research. You can go online now with a click of a mouse. You can find out a lot about people, what they say. You can hear them. You can go to their podcasts. So what we lack, in physically being able to go there, we can hear their vibration. We can see what their vani's like, their instructions. So, but there's more about that in lesson 7 of our series. It's called Finding Our Mission in His Mission, and it's really about finding our mentors in His mission too. So we'll get more into that later. Okay. Okay. So of course, the potential to have many instructing gurus doesn't cancel or preclude the requirement to accept initiation from a singular guru. So people might say, oh yes, I have so many gurus, Prabhu, I see so-and-so Maharaj online and so Prabhu, and in other words, I have so many stars in my but still, it's up to the aspirants to commit to take initiation from somebody. In the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 6, quote, how to discharge devotional service, Prabhupada identifies the first two principles of devotional service as: one, accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. It's called Guru Ashray, Padashray, right? Guru Padashrayam. And two, becoming initiated by the spiritual master and learning how to discharge devotional service from the Guru. Okay, so that's the first. So we have to take, if we're sincere, we'll take the next step. We won't forever remain on, what's the first step in devotional service? Ado Shraddha. We're curious. Oh, what's this? Hare Krishna. What is this Krishna consciousness? And we have enough faith that this is worth my time to listen. And then Ado Shraddha Tatak Sadhu. So then we actually start hearing more in a focused way from the sadhus, from the people who were practicing. And then when they get really interested, okay, I'm convinced this is the absolute truth. I want to get closer to Krishna. So what's the next stage? Bhajana Kriya. We take initiation and we start serving cooperatively, and the whole 9-step. It's like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have 12 steps. Well, this is the Vaishnava 9-step program, from Shraddha to Prem. Okay. In Prabhupada's movement today, initiating gurus may act like parents and instructing gurus like well-wishing relatives. So it's like you may have your Guru Maharaj, and it's kind of like a parental relationship with the disciple. But then you can have so many uncles and aunties too, who can instruct you. Their relative influence, however, depends on how those relationships develop over time. Like who was, for example, who was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's initiating guru, Diksha Guru? Anybody know? Remember his name? He lived on the other side of the river in Navadvip. Bipin Bihari Goswami. But over time, the Thakur became closer to whom? Jagannath. That's why in the altar, is it right there? Yeah. You see next to Bhaktivinoda, you don't see Bipin Bihari. You see Jagannath Das Babaji. Because our line is really a line of shiksha, super shiksha people, prominent, shiksha people. It's not about who you take initiation from. So our parents are always our parents, yet sometimes we become closer with our relatives. That doesn't mean we disrespect our parents, but it means you could just get closer to some relative, especially if our parents are distant. You don't get so much shiksha from them. Instruction. Nonetheless, if all of them, the diksha, the shiksha, the parents, the relatives, are well-wishers, serving cooperatively within the founder Acharya's mission, harmony and spiritual progress prevail. For example, I have a godbrother who was initiating even when he was a brahmachari. His name is Krishna Kshetra Swami now. He's a scholarly devotee. He writes books, and he used to teach in university, and so he's an old friend, so I was asking him, I say, what do you tell when you initiate people, can you give me an idea of what you tell them in initiation? Because you're not always going to be there physically with them, right? So he said, yes, good point. I tell them that wherever they are in this world, to develop healthy shiksha relationships with senior devotees, because I won't be there personally, but they can, if they're really Krishna conscious, not just by the lip, but by their behavior, then they can give you they can give you good instruction. Especially if the more they know you, the more they'll know how to apply Prabhupada and Krishna's teachings to your situation. So develop healthy shiksha. So that's a very beautiful, exemplary, non-envious kind of instruction. He's not possessive. with his disciples. He's not saying, no, don't hear from anybody else but me. No, that's nonsense. Hear from the people who are going to help you in your relationship with Krishna. And then, of course, you can always write me too, or you can always, we'll see each other occasionally. But take advantage of the good, so many sadhus in ISKCON, he was saying. So just take advantage. Okay. And then harmony and progress will prevail, not jealousy. Yeah, that's happened sometimes in the past. Okay. All right, before that's the end of that section called, what was it called? Initiating and instructing gurus. Is there any questions on the chat? Or we're depending on you folks too out there in Cyberland. This is everything you ever wanted to know about the founder Acharya, but we're afraid to ask. Put it right in the chat. We don't judge. Oh, there's no such thing as a silly question, unless you're just trying to make a joke. So any questions about initiating and instructing gurus?
So, Prabhu, I have a question.
Okay, the two Mataji. Yes.
So, until Prabhupada was in this world, he was the only initiating guru. Right?
Yeah.
So it was only after he left this world that we had other gurus.
Yeah, he was preparing us. He would say things. I mean, we couldn't even imagine what he was. In fact, we come to this a little later in the lesson about here. You know, we were just raw recruits. I mean, from the American counterculture. That's what he started in New York, right? Born and raised on the very activities which we vowed to give up at initiation. So he knew who he was dealing with. And right from day one, practically, even before he initiated people, you can hear early recordings, 1966. He's telling people to become gurus. Because he's saying, I don't know, I'm an old man, I don't know how long I have to live. Just try to understand what Krishna's saying in Bhagavad Gita, and then you tell others. He had a very expansive, generous, view of the parampara, how it's going to expand. And he's telling this to people who are, just don't even know what human life means. Yeah. So yeah, Prabhupada was the only spiritual master, but he was always trying to tell us, and it's a little later in the lesson here today too, that he was saying, now you have to become gurus too. Of course. I mean, now we think, of course, or else how is it going to go on? Right? And that's my generation. Now we're Prabhupada's age, and how is it going to go on after we all leave? We got to, our only business, especially now, is to make sure that the younger generation and so many generations imbibe the spirit of Prabhupada as he spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. The mission, the teachings, all the different things that Prabhupada emphasized. How is it going to go on unless we act as gurus? We may not be, in fact, most of us, regular gurus, are not necessarily all-stars, like Mataji was saying, famous people. But we can, start with ourselves. We have to save ourselves by following the instructions of Prabhupada and Krishna. And then according to our capacity, we can save our families, or we can save the block, the neighborhood, or, So some people have big capacity, like Prabhupada told Jayapataka Maharaj. He would have, I think he said 50,000 disciples. Now he has more than that. I think he's pushing 70,000. No. So, and Kaviraj Goswami also says this. I'm not sure of the reference, but it's either in CC or Bhagavatam. How, I think it's Bhagavatam, first canto, how birds fly in the sky according to their capacity. Some birds fly higher than others, but they all can fly because they're birds. So gurus have different capacities. Some can give shelter to thousands, some can just give shelter to a few. But they can all fly, so to speak. They can all take their dependence back to Godhead because they're plugged into the Guru Parampara. So where were you going with that question, Manaji?
No, this was just like a yes, no question.
Oh, yes, no.
Yes,
Okay.
it was curious that until he was in the world, there was nobody else. And after he
Yeah.
left, then possibly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
And Prabhu, like just to expand on that, as long as the guru is there, his disciples won't be like, cannot be the initiating guru.
they can, if the guru sees a need. Yeah, that's the, I mean, you're right, that's the rule. But the exception is if, say, and that's even happened in Prabhupada's time. He became incapacitated that last year he was with us. So that whole last year, 1977, he was gradually divesting himself of all his duties because he couldn't do them anymore. He couldn't manage. You know, like, I mean, he was always begging the GBC to take over management. But we were so new, you know, that Prabhupada always had to step in. And especially in India, where Prabhupada said, you know, I'm a Calcutta boy, I know the ways of the world. You know, you people, you don't know, you're getting cheated. So they're gonna cheat you in so many ways in India, because they know you're naive about how to do things in India. Like building the temples. You know, a lot of the components, the ingredients, you know, the brick and mortar and cement. Prabhupada inspected it, and it had to have a certain, he would tap it with his cane to see if it was good cement. He knew how to, you know, he knew so many things like that. And so if it was low quality, he would say, no, return this. This is cheating cement. Or return these flowers. They put a few nice ones on top of the bucket and they have all rotten flowers underneath. Return these flowers. Yeah. So Prabhupada, he divested himself of all management, and then gradually he was turning over the duties of initiation to others, because he couldn't travel anymore to initiate or even, you know, write letters. So he started naming people to take over that. And then even in the last month, he was saying to a couple of people that were in India, he said, oh, so you can chant on the beads, you can give the name. I've already told you, you know, that, because they asked Prabhupada on May 28th, 1977, what's going to happen after you leave? There's a specific GBC meeting with Prabhupada about this. And Prabhupada said, oh, to spare you the whole long, finally it came out, you know, they will be the disciples of my disciples, grand disciple. That's parampara, that's how it goes on. Of course, not to imitate the founder Acharya. The founder Acharya will always be, you know, the main person in the ISKCON branch of the Chaitanya tree, just like in the Ramanuja branch, Ramanuja Sampradaya. They have gurus for 1,000 years after Ramanuja, but Ramanuja's teachings are supreme, and everybody else, all the other gurus for 1,000 years after Ramanuja, they were helping their followers understand Ramanuja's books, worship his murti, worship his form, and execute his Vishishta Advaita mission. So that's the same thing with ISKCON. We read Prabhupada's books for class. We do Guru Puja to Prabhupada every day. We execute his ISKCON mission according to what he emphasized that's important for the world. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, the power of commitment. Heavy with spiritual knowledge. All genuine gurus are teachers. At the same time, their impact on our lives varies according to the depth of their commitment to us. Continuing his commentary to text 34, Prabhupada writes, quote, Gurun is plural in number because anyone who gives spiritual instructions based on the revealed scriptures is accepted as a spiritual master. That's who a guru is. Anybody who gives instructions based on the Shastras. Although others give help in showing the way to beginners, what's that called? What's the technical term for the introducer guru? Who was Prabhupada's introducer guru?
His friend.
Narendranath Mullik, who convinced Abhay Charan Dey to go see the sadhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Now, Naren, he never took initiation, but he introduced Prabhupada to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and Prabhupada eventually took Diksha from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Although others give help in showing the way, it's Pata Pradarshaka Guru or Vartma Pradarshaka Guru. No, it's okay, Prabhu. That's I'm just gonna take it off. Oh, for Gorni Tai?
No, it's already offered.
All right, well, you can touch it to my head. There's a garland coming for everybody out in Cyberland, so I offer the garland to all of you. So we can put it on the TV. Whoa. Okay. Although others give help in showing the way to beginners, the guru who first initiates one with the Maha Mantra is to be known as the initiator. So there's two so far. There's the Vartma Pradarshaka and there's the Diksha. And the saints who give instructions for progressive advancement in Krishna consciousness are called instructing spiritual masters. So notice the progression from introducing to initiating and instructing. Whoever instructs us the most is naturally more influential in our lives. As we noted above, quote, generally a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. And that close relationship may just continue, but it may, as Krishna Kshetra Maharaj permits, it may go to other people too, but it's the same message. It's the same message of Krishna. Because who's the original guru? Krishna. He's original everything. Govindam Adi Purusham Amaham Vajami. But he works through all these people. He works through initiators, instructors, introducers. Even Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Rasoham Apsukonte. I am the taste of water. So the water can be a kind of guru for us if it reminds us of Krishna. The light of the sun and the moon. We can't see it now, but yeah, you see the sun. The sun can be a guru. Oh, Krishna's witness. He's witnessing me. The moon. The sun in the daytime, the moon at night. Oh, there's the full moon. The full moon's coming up on Monday, by the way. So that can all remind us of Krishna.
Does that mean learn from nature?
Yes. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's 24 gurus, and they're all items in nature that can teach us. Like the dog can teach us obedience, it says.
One quick question there, bro. So guru has to be living person, right? It cannot be like.
Yeah, well, yes, the guru, you mean who we take initiation from? Yes, because the guru, or else how do you know the guru is accepting you? The guru has to accept us on behalf of the parampara. So how can I approach somebody who's not present physically on the planet? Yeah, the parampara is a living parampara. And yes, Prabhupada lives forever by his divine instructions, but his instruction is you have to approach somebody who can personally guide you, in this lifetime. And I have an example, I have a story from a godbrother who was, Prabhupada's giving a class on 1-2-18 Bhagavatam, where it's Nashtaprayeshva, or 1-2, Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya. So in the purport, Prabhupada said there's two Bhagavats, the person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. So my godbrother asked the question, Srila Prabhupada, what's more important, the book Bhagavat or the person Bhagavat? Now you can make a case for either one, right? Because the Shastra is central. The Shastra, gurus come and go, but the Shastra remains as a record. But in this case, what did Prabhupada say? The person Bhagavat, because the guru can pull your ear. The guru can correct you. Who's going to correct me? If I don't let my Shiksha and Diksha gurus improve me, I might be sincere, but I might be foolish and going off in the wrong direction. Okay, anything in the chats? Nothing. All right. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Hmm?
Are we on the correct slide now?
Let's see. I don't think you should move it yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. Yeah, not there yet. They just go back. Yeah, stay there. Or let them toggle as they like. Okay. Even if the guru doesn't say a word, the guru is always teaching, especially by example. The most powerful teacher. Example is better than precept. Prabhupada would say that. And quote, actions speak louder than words. I told the story last time here, maybe, I forget if I did or not, that I have a godbrother, the late great Vishnu Jan Swami, famous Kirtaniya, whose recordings are still available. So he was in Mayapur once and he said, Prabhupada, I would like to take one of those, I would like to take a boat down the river and chant Hare Krishna and enliven all the villagers. You know, at different points in the river, there's these little villages and you just put the boat in and you get out. But then he said, but I don't speak their language. I don't speak Bengali, right? So Prabhupada laughed. He said, oh, they don't care what you say. They just want to see how you behave. Achar is more important than prachar. Actions speak louder than words. They want to see how they want to see if you're real, if you're walking your talk, as we say. Yeah. Okay, so here's the section. This is a new section now.
Yes.
Not yet. It's called, so this is a quote. So you, every one of you, become guru. This is an answer to what I was saying to Mataji. For the devotees listening to Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja address, their appreciation of his unique position is increasing. So there we are. I mean, it's one thing to hear Prabhupada on a recording and read his books, but when Prabhupada had such a presence, you know, he was just awesome in the original sense of the word, not in the cheap modern sense. He just inspired awe, right? Seated on a throne-like crimson dais, that picture we saw before. Prabhupada is a guru of gurus, quote, a master at whose feet all masters sit. Although their commitment to him is as green as their summer surroundings. That's, do you know that image? We say if somebody is green in English, that means he's a rookie. He's not mature, not ripe, not mature. Yeah. Yeah. So although their commitment to him is as green as their summer surrounding, we're surrounded by this beautiful forest outside the pavilion. His commitment to them is timeless, and his ongoing request difficult for most of them to imagine. Become guru. So we can't even relate to it, you know, we're just like little babies, spiritual babies, right? All right, now the next, slide 6. Yes. Prabhupada's request is no other than the request of Lord Chaitanya himself. In the Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 7, the Lord tells the Brahmanas Kurma and Vasudev to chant Hare Krishna constantly, become spiritual masters, preach Krishna consciousness, and liberate all living entities. The first sentence of Prabhupada's commentary to verse 128 of that chapter says it all. This is the sublime mission of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, to inspire everybody to become spiritual masters and save the planet, right? Save yourself. As recorded in the Bhaktivedanta database, in hundreds of lectures, morning walks, room conversations, letters, and public and private events, Prabhupada cited the above verse as a reminder of the Lord's request, become Guru. It's a famous verse in Bengali. You know this verse? Yare dako, tare kaha, whoever you meet, tell them Krishna Upadesh. Tell them what Krishna says. Amara Gai Guru Hanya, by my order, you be Guru. Tare Desh, save this land, save this place, according to your capacity. Become Guru from the beginning through the middle to the end of Prabhupada's global ministry. That's a Jagat Guru, right? Global ministry. These reminders to his followers were relentless. He was always saying this, not just at the end. Here are two examples. Now, he said this in 1969, right at the height of the counterculture, right? Quote, now, this is January 69. Historically, what was going on was Prabhupada's Gita as it is had just come out. Not in the complete form, the unabridged. Macmillan had the first edition, Macmillan Publishing House Company. It's a whole miracle story of how Macmillan agreed to print Prabhupada's Gita in an abridged form. Just a reduced form, because they say this is too long, because it was like 1,000 pages. So Macmillan said, so look, you just give us a manuscript so we'll come out to a few hundred pages, right? So this is the Gita I read. Little, yeah, a few hundred pages, a purple paperback, a black Vishnu silhouette on the cover. And then it was padded with reviews by counterculture heroes like Allen Ginsberg and Denise Levertov and Thomas Merton. They were so afraid it wouldn't sell. So it just came out in the fall of '68. So now one book, this is the first, well, two books, because also Teachings of Lord Chaitanya had come out from this Japanese publishing house, Dynapan. So just two books are out, and Prabhupada is writing this. He's like, it is not now, we have a whole library of Prabhupada's books, but now there's two books. Quote, I want that all of my spiritual sons and daughters will inherit this title of Bhaktivedanta, so that the family transcendental diploma will continue through the generations. Those possessing the title of Bhaktivedanta will be allowed to initiate disciples. This is in 1969, January. And then Prabhupada says, maybe by 1975, all of my disciples will be allowed to initiate and increase the numbers of the generations. That is my program. He didn't say he'd be gone. Remember I told you about the emergency? Of course, he saw that we weren't really ready for that by 75. But that was his vision, that he just wanted to spread it all over the world as fast as possible. And he wanted his disciples to go and initiate too. My god sister Rukmini, who joined in 1968 in Montreal at the age of 16, she said to Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was sending 3 householder couples, 6 of them, to England to open up England, and they were the ones that met the Beatles, and so Prabhupada was saying, he said everybody should. You have to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world and be spiritual masters. And then so Rukmini said, she had just been initiated. Wendy had just become Rukmini. So she said, oh, Swamiji, they were still calling him Swamiji. Even the girls? Yes, even the girls. By my order. By my Amaragya Guru Hanya. By my order. Okay, that's one letter. So here's another one. This is a room conversation. That was in '69. All right. Here's 6 years later. in Tehran, the devotees are underground in Iran. It's still, you know, autocratic society, very repressive to this day, as you know from the news.
At that time, Shah was still in control, right?
He was still there until 79, but still they were, you know, they were, because it was still Muslim, totally Muslim, right? Even though it was liberal in many ways, but religiously it was just Muslim. Quote, so you, every one of you, he's telling, again, 3 householder couples who were pioneer, because one of the men was a native of Iran. So he had an inn there. So you, every one of you can become guru. Now you may say that I'm not interested to become a guru. You know, we might think out of humility, I don't want to be a guru. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that if you are not interested, that's not very good. You should be interested. You must be guru. That is success of your life. In other words, you not only imbibe what you've heard, but you have to give it. That's what a guru is. You give it out. Room Conversation, Tehran, 13 March 1975.
Did he win any disciples there in Iran?
Are they there now?
Yeah, are there in Tehran?
Okay, the question is, are there devotees in Tehran? There are, but because it's became so repressive after the, you know, it became militantly, you know, after it became a theocracy with the mullahs, after they kicked out the Shah, then it really became very hard to preach. So there are devotees, but it's kind of like, you know, in China to this day. They do it very low key. There's no temples, nothing, you know, visible.
Yeah.
And you can't, at least in the Shah's time, like this devotee, Atreya Rishi, Mars Attar, his name was, his Iranian name, his native Iranian. So he said, you know, this is, the people's, they could call God Allah. So Prabhupada said, yes, well, Lord Chaitanya said, the Lord has hundreds and millions of names. So why are you being sectarian? If they know that name, then tell them to chant that name of God. Because God has, Lord Chaitanya said, God has hundreds and millions of names. You can't make up a name of God, but if there is a revealed name of God, according to their scripture, the Quran, then you inspire them to chant their own name of God. Don't be sectarian, you know. Yeah, and in China to this day, it's very underground. They don't have temples, but because of the Chinese fascination with yoga, like so many places in the world, the devotees in China, there's lots of devotees in China. They go in and they introduce Krishna consciousness through yoga, the yoga path, and they're also because the Chinese like Buddha, a lot of Buddhists, so they honor the Buddha and they honor yoga. And this way, gradually, they start with those two and then they bring them to Krishna, but in a very careful way. Otherwise, you know, the Chinese, especially now with Xi Jinping, you know, he set himself up to be maybe the president for life. He's like Putin, right? They changed the law, they changed the constitution, they changed the rules. So anybody who's competing, who's any influence that if the Chinese officials see as competing with, you know, the ruling power agenda, yeah, the Communist Party in China, then they'll shut you down. Look what happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989, right?
Yeah.
So they have to be very careful.
They killed a lot of Falun Gong people.
Out of what?
Falun Gong.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Falun Gong is probably bigger membership than even the Communist Party,
Right.
but they are still underground. They don't show up.
Yeah, yeah. So they have to be very careful, the devotees. Okay. Okay, this section might be the last. Let's see. It's called Strictly Follow. No, not quite. We're getting there now. How are we doing on time? Okay, 6. Yeah, we'll get. Okay, it's called Strictly Follow. While he was spreading Krishna consciousness worldwide, Prabhupada anticipated the disorder that would likely befall his movement after his passing. Prabhupada actually predicted in the fourth canto. We're going to read it. What would probably happen once, the charismatic leader leaves? But it wasn't just, charisma is kind of a cheap word to compare to give to Prabhupada. He wasn't just charismatic, but he was authentic. So it wasn't just a personality cult with Prabhupada, as wonderful as he was. So I'll just give this. Prabhupada anticipated. He even referred to the chaos that would likely befall his movement in one of his Bhaktivedanta purports. Quote, "The main business of human society is to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead at all times, to become his devotees, to worship the Supreme Lord, and to bow down before him. The Acharya, teacher by example, the authorized representative of the Supreme Lord, establishes these principles. But when he disappears, things once again become disordered." So Prabhupada knew there was going to be some tough times for ISKCON, and there was. The perfect disciples of the Acharya, to relieve the situation by the perfect disciples of the Acharya try to relieve the situation by sincerely following the instructions of the spiritual master. So although we did go through some really dark times in the 1980s after Prabhupada left in the late 70s, Prabhupada's, his instructions and his spirit and his faith in Krishna had entered very deeply into so many hearts that we pulled out of it. But we're still, faced with the challenge of carrying on. Still a lot of divisive issues that come into ISKCON that threaten to divide us. So we have to pray to Prabhupada and try to do things his way. Because those challenges and controversies, they were there in Prabhupada's time too. But because Prabhupada was so powerful, he would just say, "No, don't do that, do this." He was the captain of the ship, right? And we had a tendency to take the ship all over the place, but Prabhupada, "No, just do that." "Okay, Prabhupada." Prabhupada anticipated that some of his leading disciples, out of immaturity, might try to imitate his unique position as Jagat Guru, a universal teacher. At the same time, his relentless reminders to become genuine gurus indicate a greater concern. So Prabhupada, he was concerned that people might try to imitate his position as Jagat Guru, and that happened. But he had a greater concern that in their supreme esteem for their founder Acharya, his followers would not mature to become gurus in their own right and shelter others in Lord Chaitanya's mission. He was concerned that we wouldn't step up and spread all over the world and become gurus ourselves and spread Krishna consciousness. How then would Krishna's mercy reach every town and village, as the Vedic scriptures had foretold? And how would every sincere aspirant receive the personal care and guidance they would need to make the journey home, back to Godhead? In his writings, therefore, Prabhupada made it clear that the most important qualification to become a guru was to strictly follow the instructions of Guru and Krishna. Slide. Okay, one more. There you go.
I have a question.
Yes, okay, question.
Can we go back to the previous slide?
All right.
I just wanted to ask, what is depicted here?
Yes, well, there was two personalities. The question is, what's depicted in the previous slides? So let me go back. It's Vasudeva and the Kurma Brahman. And one of them was a leper. That's Vasudeva the leper, who there was some offense, you see, in his other side of the body he gave up. Lord Chaitanya cured him of his leprosy. Yeah.
So that's Lord Chaitanya and.
Yes, yes. And there's another personality called it. And he told both to the same, he gave the instruction to both Vasudeva and the Kurma Brahman just stay, because they all wanted to go with him. And Lord Chaitanya said, no, no, you stay where you are and you make everybody Krishna conscious, whoever you meet. Tell them about Krishna. Be a guru. Right? This is my order to you. We need this. So Prabhupada's saying the same thing. Oops. Okay. All right.
So there's one question I think.
Oh, one question on the chat. Finally, our chat comes through.
So it says like, Prabhu, I have a question about Srila Prabhupada and Sanskrit. Whom did Srila Prabhupada learn Sanskrit from? Because translating and commenting on scriptures like Gita and Bhagavatam requires more than school Sanskrit.
Right.
Sometimes when people ask me, I'm unable to answer this
Mhm.
and it disturbs me. Please enlighten.
Okay. I can't pretend to know exactly who taught Prabhupada's, but Prabhupada did study Sanskrit in college. He studied English, Sanskrit, philosophy, economics. He had those focuses at Scottish Churches College, which is a part of the University of Calcutta system. And here's another point, that to translate and to write his purports to the Shastra, scholarship is not the main consideration. The main consideration is that one is strictly following, as we just were hearing, his spiritual master. So the reason Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports are so potent is that because he, among all his godbrothers, he was the one who took Bhaktisiddhanta's instructions to heart, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. There was once a scholar in France who came to Prabhupada and offered, he was a Sanskrit scholar and he was French. So he said, and the French are very protective of their language too. They're the only language that has l'Académie Française. They have this academy that doesn't allow any foreign influence in their language, although it's in there all the time. They can't even stop it, but they're kind of the guardians of their language. Francois Chenique, Professor Francois Chenique, he came, he was very nice. He came in a dhoti, a tilak. He was a professor of, let's see, what was he professor of? I forget exactly, but it might have been religious studies, might have been Southeast Asian religions or something. And he said, I want to help. I think he had a degree in Sanskrit, and in your books, when they're translated into French, I don't want them to smell of English. Because Prabhupada was dictating his books in English. But this professor also knew Sanskrit, so he just wanted to go right from the Sanskrit into high French, into real Paka French, without any smell of English, as he put it. So Prabhupada appreciated his concern and his offer of seva, but he said, actually, the qualification to translate and annotate is not scholarship. It's that it's based on realization that one gets from following the instructions of his spiritual master. So it was a way of gently telling the professor that if you really want to be potent and pure in your translation and into French, you've got to actually follow the disciplines of bhakti. You've got to take a spiritual master. He didn't say, you got to surrender to me. It wasn't Prabhupada's way. He was very modest and transparent, but he was telling him, don't think your scholarship won't save you. But you surrender to the Guru Parampara will save you.
Yeah, that's before many gurus would have said the same thing. So
Yeah, the real gurus will tell you that. They won't, it's not a matter of scholarship.
Krishna consciousness, that fears on Krishna, then Krishna himself give you that power.
Yes, Krishna will empower you, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to this. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I'll just start the paragraph. In his writings, therefore, Prabhupada made it clear that the most important qualification to become guru was to, quote, strictly follow the instructions of Guru and Krishna. There's the slide where Prabhupada he's actually writing a letter there. Quote, a person who is liberated, and this is from a letter too, that's why I chose it, I just remembered. A person who is liberated Acharya and Guru cannot commit any mistake, Prabhupada wrote an early disciple. But there are persons who are less qualified or not liberated, but still can act as Guru and Acharya by strictly following the disciplic succession. Even Prabhupada, in his humility, he would say, I may not be perfect, but because I'm following the perfect, therefore I am perfect. Or just like the mailman, again, if he's just delivering the mail, if he's not changing anything, then he's a bona fide mailman. So that was a letter, very early letter to a devotee who became Janardhan. In Montreal, 1968, April. Now we're getting close to the end here. Yeah. Okay. So here's how I end it. One need not be a Superman or a superwoman to be a regular spiritual master. Liberated or non-liberated, a guru is genuine if he or she, quote, strictly follows the orders of Guru and Krishna. By Prabhupada's reckoning, his movement today, now we're 2022, likely has more local gurus than its own members recognize. I mean, there's so many gurus in this movement, not just 100, whatever. But they're not officially, they should be encouraged more. They should be approached. Because real qualified people they're not ambitious personally. They don't lobby to become gurus, but they should be approached by seniors to say, Prabhu, we need you to step up and do this service. You know, there's not enough people performing this service. Could you please? You're more than qualified. By Prabhupada's reckoning, his movement today likely has more local gurus than its own members recognize. They simply need to be formally approached for guidance and formally encouraged to give it. As Prabhupada told his disciples in Hawaii, listen to this, quote, we require many millions of gurus. Whoa, that's the biggest number I've ever seen. Many millions of gurus. That was a lecture in Honolulu, 21st May, 76. And then here's how I end it finally. Slide 8. There we go. And that's actually from, yeah, that's how Prabhupada actually gave the lecture. He had his hand in his bead bag, and you can hear the flies buzzing around the microphone and the cows going in the background, and the babies, crying, and you can hear the whole thing as it is. Pens scribbling, cameras rolling. His American guests listen to Prabhupada close his Vyasa Puja address. As he looks into their eyes, Prabhupada is concerned that they've correctly heard and understood his message. Quote, this is how Prabhupada ended it. So this is the position of a spiritual master. Don't misunderstand that this person is sitting very comfortably and taking all honors and contribution. It is needed just to teach them how to respect the representative of God. This is the sum and substance of Vyasa Puja. Thank you very much. And then when Prabhupada said that, we all cheered, clapped, and then Prabhupada got down from his seat and he went behind the makeshift Vyasasana and he got into a little yellow Volkswagen and he drove away. And then we had a big kirtan, and then we were left alone. I think I might have told you this story. There was for Prabhupada's to his left, to our right, there was a stage with deities there, and in front of the deities there was a big cake.
This was inside the temple.
This is a makeshift. This is an outside pavilion. This is just a pavilion with deities on the stage. It was all kind of ad hoc, because there were so many people. There was the temple was a little farmhouse. There was no room. Yeah. So we all chanted, and then we all rushed the cake and devoured the cake. And then a half hour later, Prabhupada says to his servant Nanda Kumar, so there is some cake.
So he went to Vrindavan, New Vrindavan twice, right?
No, he went
Then
72, 74, 76. No, 69, 4 times.
4 times there. Okay.
Yeah, but let me tell you the story. So, so there was some cake. So Nanda Kumar goes, oh yeah, there was a big cake. It was a huge cake. Took the Mataji's days to bake it and, store it and build it on the stage, and it was many layered. And so, so he ran back in the Volkswagen, and by the time he got there, there wasn't a crumb left. We had devoured the cake. I mean, and the evening news was still going, Prabhupada had given this big, beautiful speech, demystifying the guru, and then we gave the purport, we devoured the cake. So Nanda Kumar's going, oh no, there's no cake. So he goes back and he runs in, Srila Prabhupada, the devotees ate your cake. So Prabhupada is so tolerant. He knows us. He knows how out of control we were, right? Because we'd been fasting for Vyasa Puja. So Prabhupada said, that's all right. You bake another one. Now, I didn't know. Somebody heard that Nanda Kumar told another Mataji in New Vrindavan. This just happened last year. It was just on how I'm always learning details of these leelas, Even though I was there, I didn't know this detail. Some lady in New Vrindavan heard that Prabhupada didn't get any of his cake. So she quickly baked some cupcakes. She made a little, cupcake for Prabhupada, a couple of cupcakes. And she brought it over to the cabin where Prabhupada was staying, and she offered it, and Prabhupada loved it. She loved that little bhakti, that extra bhakti. Prabhupada is saying, of course, those who are my students, they know what is this Vyasa Puja, but they didn't know how to control themselves after the speech. Okay, so Prabhupada says, thank you very much. And then I say, and thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for caring enough to come and rescue us. Prabhus, I would love to hear your questions and comments some more. Hare Krishna. So are there any more? Now, Rasa Kelly has been taking notes, and you are the golden question girl. You were the golden girl with questions. So now you're silent. Uh-oh. Your reputation is on the line here as a question girl. Rasa Kelly, you took notes. Did you have anything that struck you that you wanted clarified, or because I did leave some gaps, I did leave some things unanswered.
So like 1%, looking at the picture, Prabhupada is like lecturing while he was having his hand in the breathe bag.
Yes, it's amazing. You can see the movie. The question was that Prabhupada really, he just got up on the Vyasasana, he hopped up, and he had his hand in his bead bag, and you hear his voice ring out. So, those who are, thank you for kindly attending this. Of course, those who are my students, they know it is. Yeah, he had his hand in his bead bag the whole time, which was pretty unusual.
Prabhupada used to use his hands to.
Yeah, he would gesture, and he, of course, he had, he didn't usually do that, but he did it in this case. I don't know.
Extra expression.
Yeah, expression of humility, and he's showing that he's a student too of his spiritual master.
And it could, because of the Vyasa Puja, everyone will be glorifying him.
Yeah, so Prabhupada knew how to pass that glory on to his guru and up the whole parampara to Krishna.
Yeah, he looks very serious there.
Yes, yeah, very serious. I know the people.
People ask question.
No, not in this case, because he was just giving a speech for he was just trying to, his goal of the talk was to just inform people of what honoring the Guru was about. Preceding, before Vyasa Puja was Janmashtami. That was, this whole thing, this whole event at New Vrindavan happened in the context of about 2 weeks. Prabhupada told devotees, leaders in the movement, to invite all these VIPs because they were saying they don't understand us. We've been in America for 6 years. They don't know what we're doing. that we just dress differently, we smell different, we look different. And we have our own kind of ISKCON jargon. And so Prabhupada said, oh, we'll invite them, invite these VIP, invite so many VIP to New Vrindavan. We'll have Bhagavat Dharma discourse. So for a week leading up to Janmashtami Vyasa Puja, and for a week after, Prabhupada was having discourses, and that's where all the question and answers happened. He would give a discourse, and then he would invite questions. I only caught one of them because we came from Pittsburgh, about an hour from Vrindavan. And I got there just in time at the end of a discourse. There was this one long-haired journalist from this magazine called Mother Earth News, which is now kind of a slick, urban, upscale magazine for hip people, like yuppies. It's like a yuppie. But in 1970, Mother Earth News was a counterculture back to the land. Not a slick net, it was just printed on paper. And they had done a story on New Vrindavan. They were inspired by what we were doing.
So this was 1974,
72.
72.
72. Yeah. So one long-haired journalist from Mother Earth News raised his hand from the back of the pavilion. And we were sitting up front and he was way in the back. And he said, if the purpose of life is to know Krishna, he's shouting out the question from the back, then why is Maya so strong? He was seeing a contradiction between, if the purpose of life is to know, why is Maya so strong? Without missing a beat, Prabhupada said, your purpose is not strong. He just used the word, like judo, and jujitsu, you use the energy of your negative energy of your opponent against you. So he used the same word, purpose, and he just turned it around. He put it back on him. Your purpose is not strong. Now, we in the front, who were right in front of Prabhupada, we felt the full force of his words, so we were like, ooh, we were like wheat in the wind, just blown back by a gale force wind. And Prabhupada's answer was so swift, so sudden, so final, that there were no more questions. Everyone just, after hearing that, we just bowed down, and that was it.
That just should probably just people have experience in blankness.
Yeah, they couldn't.
Brain, for a second.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Wow.
snaps everything.
Purity is the force.
Yeah.
The force of Prabhupada's answer just
That's-
blew us away.
Yeah.
Devotee, non-devotee, didn't matter. We were just blown away.
So I have one last one.
Okay, here comes a question.
So, like, over the course of, this entire, art, you were, showing the importance of, everyone becoming spiritual masters,
Well, no, not necessarily initiating,
instructing.
because they're both spiritual masters. But we do in ISKCON put more of an emphasis on Diksha Guru, on Dikshas, but they're equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. Hopefully that'll change, because if we want to emphasize anybody, we should emphasize the founder Acharya, because our identities, we have the same shared identity. My identity, for example, is not that I'm Prabhupada's initiated disciple. That's not my identity. It's that I'm his instructed follower. You might meet people who were initiated by Prabhupada, but they don't follow, right? That's not a Prabhupada follow. That's not a Prabhupada Anuga. That's not a Prabhupada. Yeah. So really the identity that will allow ISKCON, allow this Sangha, Prabhupada's ISKCON Sangha, to survive the ravages of time will be that we'll all have the same shared identity as being Prabhupada's instructed followers. That's who we really all are for many generations. But because, of what happened after Prabhupada left, the emphasis being on Diksha, we're still recovering from that emphasis, actually. We need the center to be more on the Shiksha of the founder Acharya, and not simply the emphasis on the initiator. It's built right into our cyber identities, right? Like, do you have a cyber identity as rasikeli.ids at PalmHoNet or whatever? That's okay. I mean, but as long as we understand that the role, the job of Shiksha and Diksha gurus is to enhance, enrich, and deepen our relationship with the founder Acharya, then that's good. Then those Diksha and Shiksha gurus are worth something, because they should know that that's their role. I think I see, are you just scratching or you got a question coming up? No?
So Prabhu, one very related question to that, Prabhu.
Yes,
So one may ask actually, Prabhu, like, no, so in case of Diksha Guru, so there is a combined, there is a both-sided, two-sided commitment. The Guru commits, and the
Yes.
disciple also commits.
yes,
So there is the bond is stronger. But in case of Shiksha Guru, someone may be instructing us, but there is definitely one-way traffic, but the other side person may not be like, So
okay.
the
So,
difference-
so Prabhu is asking about, it seems like in the Diksha disciple relationship, the bond is stronger because there's a whole ceremony and, before the fire and the deities and the Vaishnavas, one makes vows and one gets a new name and like that. Well, that is because in Prabhupada's time with us, he introduced that ceremony. And he was the only guru in ISKCON. The only guru in ISKCON. Today, it's a multiple guru culture. And again, who we become close with, it depends on the relationship, how they develop, whoever gives us the most shiksha over time. And for example, we have one sannyasi who doesn't give diksha, but he's very respected and famous in our movement. His name is Bhanu Swami. His Holiness Bhanu Swami. He's based in Chennai. And he's Japanese Canadian born, Japanese heritage Canadian. He's Canadian, born in Canada. But he's always reminding everybody that our Guru Parampara is a Shiksha Parampara, or as Bhaktisiddhanta called it, it's a Bhagavat Parampara. It's not simply a Pancha Triki Parampara with rituals and ceremonies and like that. So it's not ritualistic, it's based on the teachings of the Bhagavatam. So he says, so he actually he has ceremonies because he gives formal shiksha to people. Now that's pretty progressive because he's reminding everybody that the shiksha relationship can also be very formal. We casually say, oh yeah, he's my shiksha guru or she's my shiksha guru because I see her on a podcast or I read a book, but are we actually following what they say? That's really when it's serious, then you submit to the guru. And that can happen either from the Diksha guru or the shiksha. Yeah, but we don't, see, we're very undeveloped in this kind still in understanding the full ramifications of Guru Tattva. Like when Prabhupada introduced, this comes up later in the seminar too, he introduced Guru Puja.
Introduce.
Every day in ISKCON temples, we sing a song to Srila Prabhupada and we offer him flowers. We honor him as being the main primary foundational spiritual master of our ISKCON branch of the Bhakti Kalpataru, Lord Chaitanya's desire tree of devotional service. Now, when he introduced that in Bombay in 1974, he was the only guru in ISKCON. There was a day, it's an historic fact that one day in Juhu temple, they were just still building it. And he was going up along with the devotees to offer flowers to Radha Rasa Bihari. And they were still building the temple. And then one fine day, he does the same thing with the devotees, offers flowers to the deities. And then he goes to the Vyasasana and he teaches the devotees a new song. Sri Guru Vandana. Sri Guru Charana. So that's a Narottam Das Thakur song. We didn't know this stuff. We didn't know who wrote it or we didn't know the ramifications of what Prabhupada was doing. Right in front of the deities, he was allowing himself to be worshipped as the founder Acharya. We didn't get that. We didn't get, how revolutionary that was. Or what he was doing. He was actually ensuring, that his position remained central as the founder Acharya for all generations, because he was the only guru in this kind. Oh, cool, Prabhupada teaching us a new song. That's cool. This is another aspect of the morning program, But But now that he's disappeared, and there's so many Guru Devs and Guru Maharajas, we see that how important it is to keep Prabhupada's Vani and Vapu, front and center in our hearts.
But before he introduced that, he was worshiping his gurus.
He was always worshiping his guru, but
Yeah, and-
he only
and
gradually
there's a tradition of
introduced.
that also,
Yeah, but he was only gradually introducing the position of founder Acharya. He had introduced that in 1970 in a document called Direction of Management when he created the GBC, and he identified himself as the founder Acharya of ISKCON. And then he amended that because people were still sort of minimizing his position. There was some Maya going on in the movement. And so Prabhupada, he had the GBC draft an amendment to that document, and he restated, highlighted his position as the supreme authority in ISKCON, not out of vanity, but just to protect ISKCON. And then that same year, in the spring, he did that. He introduced that song, Sri Guru Vandana. And now we see how important it is that today, like you go to a place like Mayapur, for example, and people from all the countries of the world, and they're coming from different karmas and countries and attitudes and perspectives, but they're all worshiping Prabhupada as the founder Acharya. It's very important for ISKCON to be able to be around for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a question. Oh, boy. Say it again. Yes, Prabhupada said, even the girls. And he said it in the letter. I want all my sons and daughters to inherit the diploma of Bhaktivedanta. And maybe by 1975, they will be allowed to initiate disciples.
Yeah.
So you're late.
Yeah,
It's more than
yeah.
1970.
If you become guru tomorrow, I'll make you my subscriber.
But first you have to grow up and you have to mature.
You have to do, right?
It takes time
Yeah.
to mature. Doesn't
Okay.
happen overnight.
Now you have to, right now that I will be guru one day. You have to decide.
As a service, not as a, to be famous.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Pratishta, profit, adoration, distinction. Okay, that is the first lesson. And tomorrow we're going to focus on a special kind of guru called a founder Acharya. What is that? Where did that come from? Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll worship Prasad. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Very good.